This area of Australia is called the Limestone Coast. It's called that because a thick layer of limestone close to the surface has given the area a special character. It extends essentially from the Murray Mouth to the South Australian-Victorian border, and inland to Penola and Narracourt. In places, the limestone is 300 metres thick. The region has been under the sea at times, but the land has risen, resulting in the present coastal cliffs and dunes. This limestone layer has many hundreds of caves and sinkholes, while in its cavities it holds underground water for farming. And for town water supply. Certain types of limestone give us great building material, called Gambia stone, which is quarried from many sites near Mount Gambier. Used in buildings large and small, it is easily worked and handled, yet is permanent in buildings. There is also a rich coloured and harder variety known as dolomite, which you'll see used in public buildings. Limestone, calcium carbonate, is formed over millions of years under the sea from a constant rain of limy shells of minute plankton and the shells and hard parts of sea creatures. Yet predominantly is made from lace corals, which live on the sea bottom. All this cements together over time to form limestone. The seafloor of the Southern Ocean today is a similar limestone in the making. But let's look at the ancient geology and how all this came about. About 200 million years ago, with our world well past Middle Age, the southern continents we can recognise were still grouped together. However, movement apart soon began. South America moved free earliest from Africa, but broke its southern tip connection with Antarctica much later. Meanwhile, the African plate moved northwards only a little. Somewhat later, Greater India moved away slowly, then made a rapid journey north to collide with Asia and begin to push up the very high Himalayan mountains. Australia had its share of very big dinosaurs, but later maybe only a few very small ones were left. These existed when Australia was still in the subpolar latitudes, suffering several frigid months of the year in continuous nighttime. However, Australia, which during this time had taken on the shape we now recognise, was slower to leave its cousin continent Antarctica, and didn't begin to move until only about 50 million years ago. First, there was a rift valley, which filled with silty material from rivers and glaciers. In some places, this layer of silt and clay is up to 3 kilometres thick, and is called the Cretaceous, dating back beyond 60 million years ago. It is down to this layer of sediments that we drill for oil and gas in the offshore oil fields. This is underneath where you now stand, but below the covering of limestone. At this time there were no eucalypt trees, but many varieties of conifers, acacias, casuarinas, and ferns grew in Antarctica, Australia. In fact, the countryside was dominated by pine trees. Drilling for oil in these Cretaceous strata often yields pollen from extinct plants. This included pollen from the famous Wollemi pine, whose pollen was first found deep in the oil fields long before the last surviving trees were discovered only a few years ago in the Blue Mountains near Sydney. It has been propagated and is now available in most plant nurseries around Australia and overseas. Mammals, who were small but pretty well established in Gondwana, later developed their own forms in South America and Africa. But both these countries became swamped by other sorts of animals which came down from the Asian and North American land bodies. While Australia, being isolated from everything else, developed its own unique range of mammals. Amongst these there remain the monotremes, that is the platypus and spiny anteater, which are very primitive remnants of an ancient time. Some mammals were extremely small, while on the other hand some were very large, and they are called the megafauna. And the kangaroo, which remains unique in the world of animals. The gap between Antarctica and Australia widened so that the sea crept in. The many sea creatures and lace corals then began the formation of limestone on the bottom of the shallow coastal waters. And here we are now, but still moving north at about 7 centimetres per year. The limestone coast gives us a good record of the rise and fall of the sea level over the past million years. About that long ago, the shoreline was the line of hills stretching from Penola to Naracoorte and Pathaway. The land has gone on rising slowly, and there have been erratic rises and falls of sea level caused by the freezing or melting of the Antarctic ice cap. The changing shoreline created a series of parallel coastal dune systems, or dune ranges. Next, the sand dunes formed at Baker's Range 500,000 years ago. The hills called East and West Avenue Ranges represented the coastline about 400,000 years ago, while Reedy Creek Range and the Dairy Range were formed about 200,000 years ago, about the time that the giant animals had begun to die out. Every time the sea retreated, a new range of dunes was formed. Lastly, Robe 2 formed merely 80,000 years ago. A further retreat of the sea and then a return to the present sea level happened only within Aboriginal tribal memory, say about 8,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age. Stand anywhere on this limestone coast region, and you're standing over history, movement, settling, and formation. Formation of a geological environment in which a healthy timber industry has found root, both softwood and hardwood. An environmental base for industry growth and agriculture. A base for economic progress.